The manufacturer and distributor, that obviously is evolving, and the balance of power is always going to be changing, and their needs and engagement are going to be changing. I think I could easily say 10 years ago, manufacturers were not posting price delivery information on the internet. That just didn't exist. A few distributors may have had that 10 to 20 years ago. Now it's very, very commonplace for a distributor to have that, but it's not uncommon for a manufacturer to be posting their price and inventory situation on their internet or aggregator sites, which is what SupplyFrame has a few of, in addition to their distributor partners. So they're now coexisting on that, almost maybe using the word frenemy, because they're competing for the eyeballs, they're competing for the sale. The end customer, the end user, is going to be making a decision on which path they go to. And that's what I'm talking about with regards to balance of power.
The first goal for modern marketing in today's manufacturing environment is to make sure the products stay top of mind. If you're looking for marketing industry knowledge, you're in the right place. This podcast will help you overcome your marketing and sales challenges. I'm Sannah Vinding, and in this podcast, we'll take a deep dive and explore how to succeed in the electronics manufacturing industry. Welcome to Modern Marketing for Manufacturing Companies and Manufacturing Reps. We'll be talking to industry leaders about how they're meeting the needs of their B2B customers in the electronics manufacturing industry. I'm your host, Sannah Vinding, and today I have Andrew Schwarz with me. He's the Regional Sales Manager at SupplyFrame. SupplyFrame is the design-to-source intelligence platform for the global electronics value chain. So welcome, Andrew. I'm really happy to have you here today.
Good morning, and glad to be here as well.
Awesome. So not everybody knows you. So if you could just give like a little background about you, I think that would be a great start.
Sure. The big bullet points would be I'm an electrical engineer and started at Texas Instruments in 1986 and was there for 18 years. And then I joined SupplyFrame just after they got started in 2005. So I'm here coming up on 17 years.
Nice. That's a lot of years. So I want us to talk about the SupplyFrame and solving challenges in the world. So if you look at SupplyFrame, and now you've been there that many years, so you know a lot. What kind of challenges have SupplyFrame seen over the last couple of years, and what kind of new innovative tactics or innovative tools have you put out there?
So, like I said, I've been here for 17 years in 2005, and digital transformation was then a strategy and not a tactic. So it's something that CEOs and CMOs would think about, but again, it was a strategy and how do you implement it? And I think the first digital transformation is people in the early 2000s would buy something called a Google AdWord. As we know that's not the only digital solution that's out there now, and SupplyFrame, who is 100% digital, we don't do anything but, now fits a niche where you can market yourself 100% digitally through our network.
Okay.
Go into some of the products. I mean, some of the products that a lot of your users or listeners may be aware of. The most popular one is going to be fine chips right now because of the supply chain issue. Yeah. So SupplyFrame Fine Chips is, I'm going to say, about an 18-year-old website. And it was created to exactly what the name implies, help people find chips. And it was obviously a very small site when it got started, and then really picked up a lot of steam probably, 5-7 years ago, but has a doubling, quadrupling effect over the past COVID time period, the supply chain issues, et cetera, where authorized distributors are allowed to upload inventory. Manufacturers can upload their inventory into this website. And then the buyers, not necessarily somebody that's just in the purchasing department in the supply chain, but also engineering, can go and do search on this site and other sites, because we have an API that we syndicate to maybe some of our engineering sites, and they can find parts that maybe would have been harder to find if you were using traditional methods like calling or emailing your distributors, et cetera.
Yeah. So has the behavior, because now you have all this digital transformation, right? And this digital platform. So has the behavior of how engineers are developing product, has that changed, and the speed as well? How has that changed over the last couple of years?
Sure. And I only highlighted, a product that people would recognize. With the digital transformation, there are other ones like Samaxis. This is an engagement, a company that we acquired 4 years ago, and they make ECAD models. So electronic computer aided design models, which is basically a PDF, which is a lot more than just a PDF, so that engineers can speed up their design without having to do a lot of that electrical spec matching manually. They can just download this ECAD model from our sites, which would speed it up.
Yeah.
Of course, sourcing, that's on the design side. Of course, the sourcing model, finding these parts, especially in the past 24, 36 months, has been challenging, like we talked about earlier, to the buyer, but also as well as the engineer. So building your smaller quantities has also been a challenge. It's not just the high volume production of refrigerator, cars, and iPhones, but it also, as far as new product introductions in finished goods, it's also a challenge to get new parts.
Yeah. Yeah. But I want to talk about the behavior, because again, it takes time to change, right? And even though the whole pandemic has pushed the whole world to communicate and work and live in a different way, have you seen an impact on that? Have you any data points where you can say, oh yeah, right, you could see how many more is actually downloading these files or actually getting all the information, because it's so important to get these data points from you guys?
Sure. So what you alluded to before is that this COVID pandemic supply chain has forced people to do their jobs differently. And there was a digital transformation that was happening at a certain rate. These other events have really accelerated that rate, along with the new generation coming into the marketplace that only knows digital. So a combination of those things has really had a much more accelerated rate than maybe what we saw in the early 2000s during the digital transformation. Yeah. So some of the stats that we have are millions and millions of datasheet downloads, or these new ECAD model downloads. The ECAD model downloads, 5 years ago were very, very small. So there's an accelerated rate that's not linear, but more exponential. And then, of course, the buy now button clicks are going through the roof as well.
That's good. And I like it. I think it's always great to have as many options, of course, sorted and simple still when you go to a website, but to have all these different solutions and options. It's great for an engineer, and I'm an engineer, so that's how I think as well. What about yourself and your challenges in your day job? What kind of challenge are you facing right now?
So I think with the whole digital transformation existing at a certain rate, now being accelerated, the customers that we are providing these solutions to are very excited to adopt them. And they're adopting them at a certain rate, but not as fast as the need, right? So the demand for digital transformation is needed or needs to be adopted faster than people can implement it. So that's probably the biggest challenge that I'm having. Can't make it through a week without somebody talking about, this is something we want to do, but we have to upgrade our website. That's probably one of the bigger ones. People can always find budget. So right now, I don't think budget is much of an issue as, like I say, some of the tactical things that you need to do for implementation.
Yeah. No, I get it. Yeah. And there's a lot of manufacturers, and there could also be manufacturing reps, right? It is set for time for them to update their website, even though it's something, not that you have to do it every 2 years or something, but you need to have a really, really good foundation, and then you can actually scale and work from there. What about if you have to give an advice to manufacturers, how to stay competitive and how to be in front of these younger engineers? What will you recommend them or advise them?
Sure. I think, from the manufacturing standpoint, we're always going to physically call on a certain set of customers. And there still will need to be face-to-face. We're hopefully coming out of COVID. Things will get back to whatever the new norm is. But some of the changes have already happened. And again, I talked about this new type of engineer, this new type of buyer that will not go back to the way that it was before 5 or 10 years ago. And manufacturing should embrace these changes and expect there to be some sort of hybrid model. That would be my advice, that it's not going to go back to the way it was. And we've all heard the saying, the new norm.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a new way of working. But what about I think under the pandemic, right? Everybody was, oh yeah, we're just jumping on Zoom or on Teams, right? We have all the webinars in the world. And then we all got so tired of all these webinars. So where are we in the whole educational on product training and in the world? Where are we here right now?
That's a great point. I think that again, you go back to my comment earlier on, there still will be face-to-face training. There still may be Zoom education, but we are seeing a huge need for video. 10 years ago, X number of videos in the market in component electronics was significantly smaller. Some can make it almost non-existent, where now it's part of a staple of every manufacturer distributor's diet to have something like that for people to use to get educated if they're not interested in the traditional means. So videos is absolutely going to be a pillar going forward as far as manufacturer rep, distributor, helping educate people that are just going to be harder to reach.
Yeah. No, definitely. What about behavior? And now that we talked about the younger engineers, and I have an example, I can use my kids, right? So if we order something and it's not on Amazon, they're like already, why is it not here, right? The next day or the day after, where I'm like, we did not order Amazon, we used something else because this is what we wanted. It's I think the behavior of that instant, right? That you just get it right there. Is that something you see as well? And maybe it's a loaded question a little bit because you say you have all these ECAD, right, files that you just get it right there, or maybe you have to make it and then you have it the next day. But what kind of the responsiveness that you see in the industry right now? How do we keep up with that?
I think it's going to be dependent on the entity of where you are in the design chain as well as the supply chain. Yeah. So that instant gratification, like you described with some of the younger generation and even the older generation, is getting very used to, I need whatever it is, and it comes very, very quickly. So it appeals to all demographics. And that's just something that each entity, depending on where you are, whether you're upstream on 100% design, prototype, small quantities, or high volume production, we all are going to have to adopt to that need, that increasing need of instant fulfillment. Yeah.
Yeah. No, and it's so important, right, to understand and listen actually on that demand and what it looks like. So I would you have your input as well, because you're not distributor, you're not the manufacturer, right? You're not the manufacturing rep, you're not the engineer. You're actually, on the side helping and engaging everything else. So how can manufacturers and distributors and the engineers, when you look at it, how can they get a much better working relationship together? Because sometimes it's just not there.
The manufacturer and distributor, that obviously is evolving, and the balance of power is always going to be changing, and their needs and engagement are going to be changing. I think I could easily say 10 years ago, manufacturers were not posting price delivery information on the internet. That just didn't exist. A few distributors may have had that 10 to 20 years ago. Now it's very, very commonplace for a distributor to have that, but it's not uncommon for a manufacturer to be posting their price and inventory situation on their internet or aggregator sites, which is what SupplyFrame has a few of, in addition to their distributor partners. So they're now coexisting on that, almost maybe using the word frenemy, because they're competing for the eyeballs, they're competing for the sale. The end customer, the end user, is going to be making a decision on which path they go to. And that's what I'm talking about with regards to balance of power. Yeah. That didn't exist before, where distributors were exclusively, especially as it relates to the internet, exclusively the solution for the fulfillment, whereas now they need to coexist. So that relationship, to your point, is changing quite drastically, and I think there's going to be a lot more of that in the future.
Yeah. So, do you have any examples of who are best in class right now, or is it everybody on the same page?
You know, I think we're still in the earlier stages of that. Yeah. Some semiconductor manufacturers, I think, are leading in that as far as posting, their inventory on their own websites or using third parties to augment that strategy. But I don't know if there's anybody that's best in class, but I would say that, you're going to see more of it.
Yeah. Okay. Looking into the future, because again, engineers, and we have procurement, right? What kind of skill set as well when you're sitting there, right? And there's so many places to go. There's so many websites. There's so many portals you can log into. There's like information coming in over you. So what kind of skill set do you see in the future when you have to navigate through this supply chain? What should you have?
Well, I think that people are going to navigate or go to where they feel most comfortable. One of the things that I think we all see in our industry, or really any industry, a lot of people pre-college or even in college are using certain platforms. Google is a great example, and they will continue to use that one going forward. Once they get their first job, for example. Or maybe in college, they may find a Find Chips, or they may find a data sheet archive. These are a couple of the website platforms that SupplyFrame has, and they may adopt that going forward later in life, meaning later in life, it could be college, it could be post-college. So I think those are some of the things that people are starting to use, and they're no different than what we use in the consumer world. You brought up Amazon. Yeah. Not everybody grew up using Amazon, and they found that as a platform that was easier because Amazon continues to evolve themselves and have more and more products. It's not just a Kindle reading solution anymore. You can use that for a lot of other things, your entertainment and physical fulfillment of products that really you couldn't do previously. So I think the skill set is going to be the adoption of learning new things. Everybody's going to start with a basic platform, like I said, maybe Google, and then through Google get exposed to other platforms. It could be Amazon, it could be ours, Find Chips, a data sheet archive, something like that.
Yeah. Looking at the whole supply chain, and I think there's this big disruption, right? And we're still in it. There's longer lead times. Everything is a little bit unsure. What's going on in the world? How are new companies or manufacturing, that's building? How are they going to set like a new supply chain strategy? How is that changing how they're working with you guys, or even how they actually are buying through you guys?
Yeah, that's a really good question. And we probably need more time than just this podcast for that, because we have countries at war with each other. We have politics that are involved. Some manufacturers are thinking of, instead of having a certain percentage of their make being done externally from the United States, maybe they're bringing it back to the Americas or even back into the United States. So there's many different solutions in the manufacturing of their physical products that I think are part of that strategy. As it relates to the digital part of that strategy, they use companies like us to over communicate with regards to an expectation. Yeah. So we have influence tools, we have campaign tools, et cetera. And I think manufacturers are going to use that to help set an expectation of NPIs, which stands for new products introductions, and then use some of the data information or videos, if you will, explainer videos, to help educate people as to where they are. Yeah.
So the data points that you have, is that something you share with your customers? Of course, only with that customer that you're engaged with, but is that what you share?
Sure. Well, we do have some products that we have for end users, people that are in manufacturing or manufacturing finished goods versus also manufacturing of the discrete components. We have two products. One's called the Design Velocity Index, because we have so many websites. We can have not so much a predictability, but we have really good data by product categories that look backwards, and you could look at trends. So from a design perspective, so you can see what people are looking at and then eventually designing in or potentially designing in. And then we have another report that's very, very similar to that, that looks at the consumption from the standpoint that they're further down the funnel, they're clicking on buy now buttons, they're looking at more inventory and pricing, not so much the spec related. And we do make these reports available to our customers so that they can better understand the market other than whatever lens it is that they're looking through.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think also that's the whole digital transformation, right? It helps you to help your customers as well, even though you know what they're looking for, but you can actually help them and direct them much better in more content or actually more products that actually fits what they're looking for.
Absolutely. Agree with you.
Yeah. Yeah. So if somebody wants to reach out to you, how can they get in contact with you?
If anybody wants to reach out to me, wow, this is like a commercial here for SupplyFrame and Andrew. My email is Schwarz, SCHWARZ @supplyframe.com. And you could reach out to me via email, and hopefully I can help you out.
Awesome. And I'll make sure to put it in the show notes. And I will also have like a little episode on the mindinnovation.com where I will put your email there as well. So Andrew, thank you so much. I think it was great talking about the supply chain. I don't think it's a never ending, I think, topic. And I hope you know that there's a good future out there, but I'm sure there is, especially with SupplyFrame.
Thank you very much for inviting me. I really enjoyed the time.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Mind Innovation Special Edition about modern marketing for manufacturing companies and manufacturing reps. New episodes are dropping bi-weekly, so make sure you're following wherever you get your podcasts. You can find me on LinkedIn, search for Sannah Vinding. You can also find me on YouTube, search for Mind Innovation, or go to my website, sannahvinding.com, or check out mindinnovation.com. Stay curious and keep learning.